which role do you think community pharmacists should play to increase the uptake of generic medicines?
Well, I think pharmacists play a critical role in that area. Increasingly, public health systems are confronted with budgetary crisis, including in pharmaceuticals. And pharmacists really play a fundamental role in encouraging patients to use generic medicines, which are by law less expensive and so less impactful on the budget of pharmaceuticals. And also, I think what's important is they can help explain to patients, for example, if they're getting a different brand of basically the same medicine. And this is very, very positive and very helpful in helping the patient through this process. I also think that this is fundamentally important because what we see is that governments need to to encourage patients to use more generic medicines in order to have more savings for the system. And if there's more savings, it can be used to give bigger access to other drugs, to pay for many of the services that pharmacists need to provide, like the many services they provided during COVID, et cetera. So it's really critical, and I appreciate the role that pharmacists play.
And what are the generic and industry main priorities in relationship to the upcoming revision of the pharmaceutical legislation?
Well, we have three big priorities. So the first one is to remove the barriers to the introduction of generic or biosimilar medicines. Often we see misuse of intellectual property or other tools to delay our entry. And that leads to huge expenses for the public health systems and delays in access to medicines. So we hope that this will be tackled in the legislation. A second key point for us is to address the root causes of medicine shortages. Many pharmacists are confronted with these shortages. They then have to tell the patient to come back later, et cetera. And this is, of course, not a good situation for the patient or for the pharmacist. So we would like to see a reform of many of the, purchasing of medicines by payers or by procurers to ensure that there's a wider range of products available so that pharmacists don't have these challenges going forward. And a third area that we'd like to see is what we were discussing in the Congress, is we'd like to see a bigger emphasis on digitalization of the regulatory system. We have a good regulatory system in Europe with very high standards, high scientific standards, but it's very complex and cumbersome because nothing is really digital. And so therefore information doesn't flow across borders, and it makes the regulation of pharmaceuticals very, very complex and difficult to read.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.